Well, this is fitting. one day after we come back for season 2,
Oh,
and
not even a
shit
day.
hits the fan.
Not even a day later.
Not even 24 hours after we post an episode, we wake up this morning to the news that Dustin Wolf has re-signed to the Calgary Flames for a 7-year, $7.5 million AAV. So yeah, I mean, Wolf went 29, 16, and 8 last year. He had a 9-10 save percentage and a 2.73 goals against average in only 53 games last year. Saw him finishing second in the Calder Trophy. We were mentioning that yesterday. 24 years old. He was supposed to hit the free agency next summer as an RFA. Knew this was coming. Didn't expect it to be literally this morning. As I just mentioned to Neil too before we jumped on, he is now the 10th highest paid goaltender in the league going into next year's campaign when the deal kicks in. Neil, we woke up this morning to this. Initial thoughts.
What an absolute steal of a contract, especially as we talked about it yesterday with the salary cap going up and guys are going to be demanding more money. The fact that Craig Conroy was able to work out a deal with Dustin Wolf on a long-term extension, and at just 24 years of age, you're talking about that contract lasts until his early 30s. I mean, you've essentially locked down your number one guy for the future.
Yeah.
And I've said this before that when you are rebuilding a team, it is very important to immediately try to establish the core guys that you are going to put your money on, that is going to carry the team, and then you put together the rest of the roster. Mm-hmm. And I think Craig Conroy has continued to do an excellent job of not only identifying the core, but locking them down. We talked about it yesterday with Matthew Coronado, obviously getting Connor Zary. Granted, it was only 3 years, but still. And now you get Dustin Wolf, long-term. And it's just one less thing that we have to worry about, that we have to talk about, that we have to stress about. And I think you mentioned it right before we jumped on, Dustin Wolf is at NHL Media Day, which I think is in Vegas. I think
it was in Vegas. Yeah.
Vegas. And he talked about how much he wants to be a Calgary Flame long-term. And literally, maybe he knew more than he let on to believe. Maybe he knew that it was coming.
Yeah,
and
clearly.
That, you just got to get it done. Quite the time of the day to announce it, though. I don't know if they just wanted to get it over.
For Flames fans, it's probably like 7 in the morning. Like,
imagine if you're on like the West Coast, like Dustin Wolf right now is probably still sleeping. If he's over in Vegas right now, he's probably still sleeping.
Get it, 7 in the morning. That's when
he's going to wake up to about 100 texts being like, "Nice job."
So it's awesome. I mean, like, you think about it, like with the cap going up and up and up and up as the next 2 to 3 years come by. You really think about it, this contract's around the $4 or $5 million range if we're sitting here today. How insane is that? I was thinking initially beforehand when we were talking about it and eventually going into the season with him signing an extension that I was kind of thinking to upwards of maybe $9 million. He's a top 10 goaltender, clearly. We didn't even sniff that. We weren't even close. I think that also speaks to not only Dustin Wolf wanting to be here, but wanting to win, and him realizing that, bro, like, I can still make great money. We're saving a lot of money towards the cap. And you actually mentioned it yesterday too, that going into free agency, even looking into next year, that's just more money saved to the bank to go out and potentially do something depending on how this season goes.
For sure. And even though, again, all signs point to him eventually getting traded, I'm just saying, I wonder if being able to do things like this and creating that much flexibility to really make this team even better than what it is right now, I wonder if that's going to eventually change the mind of Rasmus Andersson. I think that's, a story for another day kind of thing. But yeah, no, I mean, just getting him signed for that little amount of money. That is insane, because if he signed this like 2-3 years ago, we would be like, all right, that's kind of where, in terms of
in ballpark, that's where we would have wanted him to be. Yeah.
But again, with the salary cap going up, you got to start thinking in the $8 to $9 million range, especially for your top flight players. Getting Dustin Wolf under just over $7 million. It's 7.5 with the cap going up. Like you said, this is basically going to be the equivalent of him getting paid $3.5 to $4 million a year.
It's crazy.
He's going to end up being at some point one of the lower paid goaltenders in the league.
He won't even crack the top 20 by the time this deal is done, and he's
No.
still going to be up there with the elite. Like that's the and also too, like, that's the trajectory, right? Like, you look at the next 8, like, you're counting this season, right? You have the next 8 years with him. That's why it's a 7-year deal. You still have the next 8 years with him, but you're going in here like, he's still getting paid $820,000, right? But you go into this season, and I think I remember hearing this before, where it's like, every year is not going to be a perfect year for a goaltender, right? It's not going to be a great year. You're ideally looking for 6 good years. If you can get 6 good years out of him, it's still like a great value for it at the end of the day. And like, you're getting him, and you actually said it, like, you're getting him in his prime now, right? Mm-hmm. Now, when he's 24 years old and it expires in he's going to be 31 when this deal is done, right? And you're getting him for such a good chunk of time here. And it speaks also to the window of opportunity for Conroy when this new arena comes into play, right? And it's giving guys more of an opportunity to become attracted to the idea of coming to this team, where you've got a lockdown number 1 star goaltender. You got some young guys on the rise here. Zane Parekh will come into the fold eventually, right? We're going to get into that. So with the younger guys coming into the fold, and eventually when you weed out the older guys who, the Backlunds of the world, the Colemans of the world, maybe a couple other names you can throw in there. But this team, man, I'm telling you, give it 3 years from now, 2 to 3 years, it's going to be fascinating to watch.
100%. And it just gives Calgary Flames fans that much more excitement going into the year. But also, like you said, thinking about where this team can be in the next 2 to 3 years. I think it's fair to say that for the most part, we've been able to move away from the previous era of Flames hockey and the frustration that it led to. And now you're establishing the new core, the guys that want to be here, the young talent that comes in. You have a number 1 goaltender, one of the best goaltenders in the league, one of the, a guy that we just talked about yesterday, if all goes well, could maybe even potentially be on the Olympic roster. May not play, but even just him getting on speaks volumes.
So to speak to that, actually, he never got an invite.
Doesn't mean that the United States won't change their mind.
It's true.
It doesn't mean anything. Things can change, because at the end of the day, right, these guys are going to put together the roster that gives them the best chance to win. And that includes 3 different goaltenders. Everybody carries 3 goaltenders. So they value even the guy who's not going to play at all as a guy that, could get there. But this is a guy that you're going to see in the future playing at the international level, and a guy that the United States program is going to be looking to be one of the bell caps for this generation that's coming with USA Hockey. But I just wanted to say that Craig Conroy, I had my reservations about him last year in terms of how he was going to, retool, rebuild, however you want to say, this team. And I know that people were a bit disappointed with his trade deadline and lack thereof. But I see a lot more of the vision that he's been trying to create. And I have a lot more confidence in Craig Conroy that he knows what he's doing. He understands exactly what needs to get done, and locking down guys like Dustin Wolf and locking them down to a bargain deal at this era, at this time, is just phenomenal work. And it just opens up so many possibilities moving forward.
And it sticks, and you said it, like, it sticks to the idea of him wanting to commit to the timeline, right?
Right.
Ever since he came on, right? And really, when the new arena, he's said it on numerous occasions, when that a new arena gets built, we want to be competitive, right? And and you're right, it absolutely speaks to the timeline, and it does go back to like giving him the confidence of like, we know what we're doing here, right? And so, you go into this year, and again, it's more now when you go into the season, it's like you want to see how the young guys flourish, right? And eventually, what is like, there's still lots of work that needs to be done at the end of the day. There's still some things that need to get done. You need to eventually weed out some of the old here, and you still need to go find, in my eyes at least, the young prospects. Like, you can try to use Rasmus as a bargaining chip to go out and buy a young prospect, which, could be intriguing. But also too, like, we'll see how free agency goes as well, right? There might be some guys out there who, depending on their age and that, you can go get, maybe depending on how deep this free agency class might be, you might have an opportunity to go out there and have some of that free money that some of these other teams might not be able to have, right? They don't have the flexibility to go out there and sign guys to long-term deals to big money when the Flames can actually take those kind of risks. So, there's lots of opportunity. They need to hit on some of the right ones still going forward, but this is absolutely going to help.
100%. And again, the excitement around this team, I think, is increasing. I know that there is some questions about what should be the expectation for this Flames team going into this year. We talked about it yesterday, that I think that it's really important for them to make that push of getting into the playoffs, and keeping guys like Dustin Wolf long term just gives the rest of the team confidence that, like, this is our guy. This is the guy we're going to put our money on and who's going to help carry this team. And I mean, it's awesome. I mean, and like it says here in this article, that like Dustin Wolf made it very clear literally 24 hours ago that he doesn't want to go anywhere. He has no intentions of going anywhere. He believes in where this Flames team is going, and he wants to be a part of it.
Yeah. Just mentioning too in the article here, he quoted this yesterday, and it was probably a teaser at that point, where he quotes, like, it's a big city that has that small town feel. Everyone kind of knows everybody. You cross paths with one person, then another. Next thing you know, you're connected with other people in the city. And obviously we have a new building coming in 2 summers here. It's an exciting time, so we'll see what happens. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
So the kid, again, he grew up in California. He's quickly become a fan favorite, as we know, and the whole Shania Twain thing that went down at the Stampede this year. Though he never anticipated slipping to 214th, he believes things have worked out well, obviously, from last season. And he finishes the quote by saying, I was very thankful for them to take a swing. I didn't plan on sitting for that long. I'm glad Calgary took a swing. I love the city. I love everything about it. So,
there you go.
Like, that's truly what matters at the end of the day. Like, you need to have that good connection. It's that small town vibe. And, he even mentions it again, where the stadium comes in here in the next 2 summers from now, and it's going to make a difference. And it's going to give some guys belief that, hey, these guys are building something new here. And maybe it's something that we want to take a shot at, right? Where you're seeing a lot of these bigger markets now, where you're seeing teams like San Jose building something special here, Utah building something special. It might take some time for Utah, but we'll see how it goes. So, it's a lot of these smaller markets, especially with Calgary now, where you're starting to see growth and they're starting to become competitive. And more importantly, I think Calgary's going into next summer already, and summers ahead. They're already one step ahead of some of these bigger teams, where they now have that available cash with a young core that they're building around to get ready for the new arena to be built.
It is just such a it's such a positive feeling to know that your general manager is sticking to the path that he wants to go by, and he's establishing those guys, those core guys that you're going to be seeing here long term. And I think it's just it's great. It really is great. And I can't get over how Conroy was able to convince Dustin Wolf and his team to take a long-term deal for as little. It's weird to say $7.5 million per year is less money, but with the cap going up, that does look like a steal. I mean, it's in this economy, signing that is like insane. I mean, and he'll be 32 by the time this deal will be done.
It might be, by the time this is all said and done, the best valued contract in the NHL that we've seen in a long time. I don't think we're exaggerating here.
And look, he's just, to go from being picked 214th overall, round 7, to making $7.5 million for the next 7 years and being the guy between the pipes. I think
look who his agent is. We just mentioned him yesterday.
So the question I have for Pat is that it is now Luke Hughes' birthday. Fun fact for anybody that cared. So, like, when is that going to get done? because you're getting everyone else. It's like you're getting
Well, he
everyone
had
else.
priorities.
Yeah, apparently he has priority. But that's kind of an interesting thing, right? Because we know Pat Brisson to be kind of a hard negotiator with his guys. This doesn't
Right.
sound like it was hard at all. It sounded like it was fairly easy to get it done.
I think
And
Wolf wanted to make it easy too. He was definitely the
I think
driver,
Wolf
though.
told Pat, like, don't make this difficult. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be here. Just try to get a fair deal.
It
And I
doesn't have
think
to be difficult, right?
it
Like,
doesn't have to.
no,
Exactly. It doesn't have to. And at the end of the day, he gets it done. And that's huge. I mean, it's just it's
yeah.
awesome.
And you look at, so we'll look at the team here, and I'm going to pull that up in a second here if you still have time this
I
morning.
love Puckpedia. Everything just makes sense when you look at it on the
It
screen.
does. He's going to take up only 7% of the cap next year. 7%. It doesn't even make a dent.
It's a
That's
on the
crazy.
radar.
7%. So that means Coronado, who's making around that, he also takes up 7% of that
Yeah.
cap as well. Like,
Yeah.
to me, that's just unreal to see. So, yeah, you're going to look ahead here. I mean, again, he's going to be 32 when it's done at $7.5 million. My only thing, the only thing I'm going to say here is that there is no clauses,
I think that's fine.
which is fine. My only concern is that there's no, like, there's a possibility for him to be traded down the road.
Right.
Which isn't bad because you still left the door open and you can if you need to, but I don't ever envision the Flames willing to even be doing that.
I think it's better that I think for a lot of GMs it's better to not have those clauses because in the possibility that down the road you have to move them, you don't have to necessarily coordinate with them about moving them. You can just do it without worrying about that. And I think that that's
Right.
always important because that keeps flexibility, that gives you everything. And you look at it on the screen, even after that extension, you still have over $10 million in cap space.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
you still have a lot of
ridiculous.
room here to do something.
It's kind of it's phenomenal. I'd like to see what it says going into next year. So obviously you just see like, and actually this kind of helps showcase kind of what's happened this year. Pospisil re-up, by the way, 2.5 million. Kuznetsov, Poirier as well. We can look at those transactions and signings, but here's your full breakdown now of the cap hit going into this season. So you take a look. Again, Huberto taking up a good chunk of that. It's going to be fascinating. As you see, he's got a no movement clause all the way until 2029, 2030. So
Sure.
for those fans who want him gone, like there could be a realm, like I mentioned it where you could see him, you go into when the new stadium gets built for the start of the 2027 season, where it's depending on how he's done and what he's been doing, like they could end up just cutting that dry, right? And they might now that the cap is going up and that's something that they could afford where they could just buy him out.
Right.
And it's a possibility, right? And then so same thing here with Kadri, where I believe it's so you got a 13 team no trade clause. This is his last year of a no movement clause for him. Backlund, same thing. Like he's in his last year, but that's something that you really don't have to worry about. It starts January 1st, though, where he has a 15 team no trade list. So, you got a lot of guys who have modified trade clauses here. You got Igor here. You're hoping that that's gotta find a way to work out eventually. But
Sure.
you got. I think it's still a good sign though because Coronado locked in at 6.5. Now you get Wolf locked in. They just got Zari there, so you're looking at the
You
timetable
extended
here.
Kevin Ball as well earlier in the offseason as
Kevin Ball, $5.3 million.
which is a steal in its own right.
Yeah.
Even Uyghur, like if you really look at it, like even Uyghur's not making like that much.
Uyghur's got it. I love Uyghur's deal, and he is, in my eyes, he should be the captain of this team going forward. He really needs to be.
I think there is a world where that will probably end up being the case for sure.
For sure. And then now the new thing that was added this morning is that Wolf is now in at 7.5 million. So overall, like if you're really looking at it at the 2027-2028 window, right? Like there is still room here to, like, you've got Blake Coleman who will be, eventually traded or gone before the new building comes in.
Which now
There's the
his deal
realm.
doesn't even look that bad over the next 2 years, like less than 5 million. Like
Sure.
it's weird now but he has a modified no trade clause, which
He's
certainly
still going to play that bottom six type role here,
sure.
right? Like, you're going to, like, Zari's going to see the new arena here. Pospisil is going to see the new arena. So I'd like to see where the team's mindset is at going into the start of the season here, where you have even a Huberto at 10.5 million, like that's going to be lesser value going into that season with the cap going up.
Yeah,
Um, Kadri, again, like that's a guy you ideally would like to keep around, but who knows what that's going to look like 2 years from now.
sure.
So, like, ideally, I'm looking at those two pieces and maybe a Sharon Govich where, it's only a 10-team no trade list, and that's all the way through his contract.
Right.
It's starting to look better from what it did maybe 2 years ago.
Hmm.
It definitely looks
It,
much better than what it was.
it you feel like I said, you feel a lot better about where you're going. I think, and that's the thing that's so important here is because again, it's establishing that core. It's just giving your team that piece, but also the mindset of like, this is who we are now. This is our guys. And now Craig Conroy can look at the next year or two and say, I've pretty much established who my main guys are. Now let's build a team around them. And that's what I think is gonna, and I think that's gonna be the plan moving forward is filling in here and there. And
Mhm.
I have full faith that he'll figure it out.
Assuming that Conroy is going to come out today as well and talk to the media about the signing. So we'll get to hear more from Conroy
He
and
might,
maybe hear
he
more
might.
about next steps here. But, the first piece, like the next piece of business that was on the docket outside of Wolf getting signed long term, which check done, is going
Done.
to be the Anderson talk, which is eventually going to have to, come full circle here. But my envisioning here on what needs to be done next is, you're right. Like, now you've got an opportunity to build around this team here. And like, I don't like Minnesota's, like, here's the thing, like Minnesota's been able to do it where they cut two guys that were making too much money. Who's to say you can't do one, right? And I think
True.
Huberto could end up being that guy. And for the start of that season there, where Kadri's going to be making 7 million, like, it's still not even that bad, but you can still go out and establish somebody around that where he can be your second line centerman going into that season. Because Morgan Frost going into this year being your second line centerman, he might not see the new arena going into that new year.
Right.
So
No, that's for sure.
yeah,
That's for
so
sure.
it's gonna be interesting. I think, like, all eyes as soon as Rasmus Anderson is gone, all eyes are going to be turning now on to Jonathan Huberdeau and Nazem Kadri and what that's going to look like,
Yeah.
right? Because the older guys are going to eventually get out. And if Backlund, like, at this point, if Backlund wants to stay another year, I'm not going to dispute it at this
Yeah,
point.
I'm not against it. If
Like,
as long as the expectation is bottom six, which I
and
guess
he knows it too. Like, and
yeah.
I wouldn't be against that. He's going to be 37 next year, or this year, excuse me. He's going to be 37, so he's going to be 38 when he signs another 1 year deal.
So
So, like, that I'm okay with, just to kind of finish that up. I don't have a
yeah.
problem with that. You don't really want to just lose him, like, to just try to get like a 6th round pick. Like, there's no point, right?
Mhm.
You want to honor that commitment. Yeah. So I think, like, when you really look at it, when you're really thinking about from the day that Conroy started with the Flames, and the idea was to have a competitive team ready for 2027, like, today was more or less a statement for that.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
think that was a huge statement. So
Mhm.
anyway, any final thoughts?
No, I mean it's just when when does training camp start, right? I think that's really
that's the
like
next, and
I
that's the
think that's
next
where we're
thing.
at. So like you try to think about like so what else could happen before we do another episode because
Now
literally
and next Monday.
yeah, well, maybe not. Apparently it's not. Maybe something happens. With someone else on the team that we didn't talk about as much, but you never know. But yeah, no, I'm just what a great piece of news to wake up to on a Tuesday morning. Just
Yeah.
and again, one less thing that Flames fans have to worry about moving into next year and
So
forward.
my last question for you then before we sign off is, how much does this put of a notice on the league and the other teams in the league seeing that this morning? What do you think that tells them?
I think it tells them that there needs to be a bit more of a sense of urgency to get your core players signed long term before the salary cap takes a massive jump up. Because once it gets to that point, and teams and agents in particular understand where teams are and what the value they can get for their players, it's going to be much more difficult to get negotiations done. We saw it over the weekend about the projections of what Kirill Kaprizov might get on the open market or even from Minnesota. And we're talking about $14-15 million a year, right? And some people even said that Pat Brisson did a bad job with Dustin Wolf because he could have gotten him maybe up to $9 million a year. But I will say this, at the end of the day, the agents are not the ones that make the final decision as to what they decide they want to do. They represent the player. Mm-hmm. The player is the one that's going to tell the agent, this is what I want to do. Let's make it happen. So you look at like Dan Ferris as an example, who's the agent for Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner made it clear well before free agency started, get me a deal with Vegas. That's it. I don't like, and Dan Ferris wanted to go through the whole, experience. He wanted Mitch to meet with 5-6 teams to do the whole free agent. Nope. He told him, get it done with Vegas. And that's it. Dan Ferris like, all right. Pat Brisson, I'm sure he mentioned to Dustin Wolf about the potential that maybe he could get $8.5 to $9 million. Mm-hmm. But I think Dustin Wolf said, look, I don't want to hamstring the organization. I want to get this done long-term. $7.5 million is more than perfectly fine. I don't think it was as much about the money in this situation. I think
more of a motivational factor to get this team on the right track.
Right. And for Pat Brisson, he's like, I got to go with what my client wants. That's at the end of the day. He's getting paid to do what the client wants him to do. That's what it is. So,
and it tells you and I think okay, so actually last question here.
Sure.
What does that tell McDavid? You know what I mean? Fantastic. I know I'm overthinking here about this because I think it's a little bit perplexed here because you get him now at such a low value. So what's that going to you talk about what this tells the league. What does this tell about the superstar players now with McDavid? And with the cap going up and knowing that I deserve excess of what he makes now, right? I think it's whatever it is, 12, but whatever he makes more than that, that's going to be fascinating because now that happens, you wonder what that's going to, it might not, it's probably blown out of proportion here and that might not matter.
Yeah.
But it might you're going to see it and you're going to be like,
I think the thing though with this is that I don't think what happened with Dustin Wolf really affects McDavid's contract negotiation because again, you're also comparing two different players who play two different positions.
Correct.
So the value is different, right? Goaltending in many ways, Kyle, is like paying a running back in the NFL, right? Sure. Because there's a fine line that a lot of GMs don't want to cross.
Oh. And I think we may have lost Neil here. So I'm going to take him out for a second because I think we might have lost him there. Oh.
Did it work?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, great. Wi-Fi and all that jazz. Remember, guys, you have one person that's in America and one person that's in Canada. This is how it sometimes is going to happen.
Canadian.
But I will just say really quickly that there's a certain line that you don't want to cross and how much money you want to invest in between the pipes. For Calgary, having a guy that's going to get, to some people, underpaid long-term for the team itself, that's great because then you have money to go to other places and spend more money. I think for McDavid, I think he's playing the waiting game because he wants to see how some other guys get paid.
Makes sense.
Kind of have an idea, but I will say this. For the new era that we have in hockey when it comes to contracts for superstars, McDavid is the first domino to fall.
100%. He's the first domino.
With McDavid is going to determine how everybody else moving forward is going
to see it.
Get paid long-term, bridge deals, RFA contract, like all of that, right? And I think that's really where they're looking at. I think,
You
and
bet.
that's a big deal, right? And so, like, I think it certainly says something, but I think it's just another information point, just in
Yeah.
terms
If
of
anything, like
that.
this has to help though in terms of the domino effect going into the offseason. And you just see like this is like for us, it's like we're taking advantage of this early and we got to do this now before that cap starts to rise. Right.
Right.
And the fact that they, you mentioned like the running back scenario where you're not sure sometimes. Like again, for these next 8 years, if you're going to get 6 really good years out of Wolf, then that's such a good scenario to have, right?
Right. Right.
And for the value you have it going forward, like we mentioned it before, in the next couple of years when the cap goes up, you're looking at a guy who's realistically in today's, if you're looking at it today, he's making 5 million, like around 5 million, just
He's making
ballparking here.
he's making very little
Very
comparatively
little
to
money.
this.
And the
Right.
percentage, like really
Right.
what's important and what's going to be looking at, and when you look at Puckpedia, you go back to it, he's making 7%, right? Like going into when the
Right away.
contract kicks in.
Yep.
So as the years go on, that percentage is going to get lower and lower and lower
Yep.
because of the cap going up. So
100%.
hopefully,
100%.
like that should be a wake up call to maybe a lot of these teams out there who are thinking, well, maybe we got to lock down some of these young core guys long term. So,
Sure. Yep.
alrighty. So there you have it. Big news of the day there, guys. Dustin Wolf re-signed 7 years at $7.5 million.
No.
What a way to start off. And before training camp kicks in, I'm sure the players are really excited now all of a sudden to get there and hopefully make some of the younger prospects excited going into training camps. So that's the bonus episode for today, guys. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you guys on Monday. Cheers.